My name is Marcus Webb. I was 24 years old when this happened. I lived alone in a small apartment outside Columbus, Ohio. One Friday night, I got a follow request from a girl named Holly on Instagram. She was gorgeous. Blonde hair, 5,000 followers, pictures that looked almost too real. She messaged me before I even followed her back. That one small detail, I missed it completely, and it nearly cost me everything. Hit subscribe and keep listening because this one still messes me up. The girl who seemed real. I want to be upfront about something before I get into this. I am not a careless person when it comes to the internet. At the time, I was working an IT support job for a mid-sized company in Westerville. I spent 8 hours a day dealing with phishing emails and account security and people clicking things they should not click. I thought I understood how this stuff worked. I thought I had a decent radar for when something online was off. I had a public Instagram with about 300 followers, nothing impressive. I posted maybe twice a month, gym progress stuff mostly, the occasional photo from a weekend hike or a cookout with friends, standard stuff. I got random follows from bots pretty regularly, and I usually just ignored them or blocked them. I always did a quick check before following someone back. So when Holly followed me that Friday night around 10:30, I did my usual thing and went to her page, and it looked completely real. That is the part I want people to understand. It did not look like a fake profile. It was not 10 pictures all uploaded within the same hour. The photos were spaced over 2 years. Selfies, group photos with friends of vacation, to what looked like Myrtle Beach, a birthday party at someone's house. Normal stuff. Her friends were tagged in some of them. I clicked a few of those tagged profiles. They had their own content, their own friends, their own histories. Real accounts attached to real people. She had around 600 likes per picture. The comments were mostly from guys she clearly did not know, just leaving fire emojis and compliments. But there were also comments from girls who seemed to actually know her. Inside jokes, references to things they had done together, that kind of thing. I spent maybe 5 minutes going through her page, then a direct message notification popped up. She had messaged me before I even hit follow. She said, "Hey." She said she did not usually do this, but she thought I was really cute and she figured she would take the shot. The message was casual, comfortable, not desperate or overly eager, just a normal thing a person might say. I'm going to be honest. I was flattered. I am a pretty average-looking guy, and I had put some work into staying fit, so I was feeling decent about myself at the time. But I was not the kind of person who got messages like this regularly. I followed her back and replied, told her I thought she was cute too, and we just started talking. The conversation lasted almost 2 hours that night. We talked about fitness, what gyms we used, nutrition stuff. She asked where I went to high school, and it turned out we were from the same part of the Columbus metro area. She said Dublin Kaufman. I said Westerville South. She knew some of the same areas I did, same shopping centers, same neighborhoods. It felt grounded, specific, real. By the end of the night, she gave me her number, and we moved the conversation to text. The next morning, she was the first thing I thought about when I woke up. We texted throughout the week, short exchanges mostly. She would send something in the morning, and I would reply on my lunch break. Easy back and forth. Nothing that made me pause. By Wednesday, we had agreed to meet at a bar called Lucky's on Sawmill Road that Friday. She said she had been there once and liked it. I knew the place. Solid neighborhood bar, good wings and cold beer and TVs showing whatever game was on. Nothing fancy. Exactly the kind of place you take someone when you want it to feel low pressure. I spent the rest of that week in a pretty good mood. Better than I had been in a while, if I am being honest. I had been working too much and keeping to myself too much, and this felt like a good break from that routine. I did not notice anything wrong, not once. Not a single thing. The date that never was, Friday evening. I got ready around 7. Wore a gray Henley and dark jeans. Nothing overdone. I was nervous, but it was the kind of nervous that feels good. The anticipatory kind. I drove to Lucky's and got there around 8:20. It was a decent night out. Cool October air leaves starting to come down. The parking lot was about half full. I went inside and took a seat at the bar. Ordered a Dos Equis and watched the game. A Buckeyes replay on the TV above the shelves. The place had a good energy that night. Booths in the back half full with families. Groups of people my age spread out at the bar, and high tops. Regular Friday night crowd. I texted Holly at 8:30 to let her know I had arrived. She replied within a minute. Said she was about 15 minutes out. 9 o'clock came and went. I finished my first beer and ordered a second. Texted her again. She said almost there, sorry, 9:15. I was starting to feel stupid sitting at the bar alone. I kept checking my phone trying to look busy. 9:25. I was halfway through my second beer and I was honestly just about ready to call it. Then my phone buzzed. I picked it up expecting a message saying she had just pulled in. It said her car had broken down. She apologized. She said it had happened out of nowhere. She heard a grinding noise and then the engine just quit. She said she had pulled over and she was on a side road and she did not know what to do. She said she really wanted to meet me and she felt terrible. I read it twice. I tried calling her. It rang twice and went to voicemail. I called a second time. Same thing. Before I could decide anything, she texted again. Said she could not really talk right now. She described her location. Said she was on a 2-lane road called Walnut Creek Drive, about 4 miles north of Lucky's. Said she was parked near some woods. Said it was dark out there, and she was a little scared to be sitting alone. I sat there at that bar stool and I went back and forth with myself for a solid 2 minutes. I pulled up her Instagram one more time. The profile was still there, still exactly as I remembered it. There was a new post from 2 days ago, a photo of her at a coffee shop holding a mug with both hands. A girl had commented on it within the hour saying she missed her and needed to come visit. Another friend had replied with 3 laughing emojis and something about a trip they were planning together. Everything still looked real. I left $20 on the bar and walked out to my truck. The drive north took about 8 minutes. Sawmill turned into a series of smaller roads that I was less familiar with. The street lights thinned out the further I went. By the time I turned onto Walnut Creek Drive, there were no lights at all. Just my headlights cutting a yellow tunnel through the dark. Trees on both sides pressing in close to the road. Branches overhead. The kind of road you take slowly because you cannot see far enough ahead to be confident about what is coming. I slowed down to about 20 miles per hour. There was a car pulled off on the right shoulder about 200 yards ahead. I could see it in my headlights. A black Nissan Altima. Hood propped up with the rod. Hazard lights off. No dome light on inside. I pulled up behind it and stopped. Left my engine running and my headlights on. I reached for my phone to call Holly and tell her I was there. No signal. 1 bar, then 0. I looked at that car for a long moment. The windows were tinted so dark that my headlights bounced right off them. You could not see through them at all, not even a hint of a silhouette. Nothing. It was like looking at a mirror. I sat in my truck for what felt like a full minute, but was probably about 20 seconds. I kept thinking she was going to get out of the car. I kept waiting for the driver door to open. Nothing moved. I got out. Walnut Creek Drive. The air outside was cold and damp, and smelled like rain was coming. That deep, earthy smell of wet leaves and soil. The wind was moving through the tops of the trees. Not hard, just enough to make a low, constant sound overhead. My truck engine idled behind me. That was the only other sound. I walked toward the Altima slowly. My shoes were loud on the asphalt in a way that bothered me. Every step felt like it was announcing something. I went around to the front and looked at the engine under the hood. I am not a mechanic, but I know what an engine looks like when someone has actually tried to do something with it. There are usually a rag left on the battery, a tool set somewhere nearby, something. There was nothing. The engine looked completely undisturbed. The hood rod was propped up, but it looked like someone had done it manually, just popped the latch and lifted it with no intention of actually looking at anything under there. I stepped back and looked up and down the road. Nothing in either direction. The woods on both sides were solid black past the tree line. I could not see more than a few feet in. I walked to the driver's side and knocked on the window. 2 sharp knocks with my knuckle, waited, nothing. I called out Holly's name. My voice sounded thin out there, like it got absorbed by all that darkened trees immediately. No response. I knocked again and said her name louder. Still nothing. I was getting genuinely frustrated at that point. I had driven 4 miles out of my way to a road in the middle of nowhere because some girl I had been talking to for a week said she needed help, and nobody was answering. I took 1 step back from the car, and then I noticed the driver's side window had moved. It had not been cracked when I first walked up. I was certain of that. I had looked directly at it. The glass had been flush with the door frame, the window fully up. Now there was a gap at the top, about 1 inch, maybe a little more. I stared at that gap. A hand came through it, large, wide across the back, dense knuckle joints, dark hair across the backs of the fingers. The hand came out slowly, and the fingers curled into a beckoning motion, pointing at me, pulling the air between us toward the car. It was unmistakably a man's hand. I stepped backward. 1 step, then another. My brain stopped producing words. It stopped producing anything coherent. The only thing it did was send 1 single message down through my body to my legs. Get back to the truck. I turned and walked fast. Not quite running. My body would not let me run, but every step was as long as I could make it. I got back to my truck, got in, pulled the door shut and hit the lock button, and sat there for 1 second with my hands on the steering wheel, gripping it as hard as I could. Then I looked at my mirrors. The Altima's headlights came on, both of them, just like that. No delay, no warm-up, just on, aimed straight at my rear window. I put the truck in drive and floored it, with the car with no lights. I drove back towards Sawmill as fast as I could manage on that narrow road. My eyes went between the windshield and the rearview mirror every few seconds. For the first 30 seconds or so behind me, there was nothing, just dark road. Then headlights appeared far back, maybe a 1/4 mile, moving. I turned right onto Sawmill without stopping, pushed the truck up to 60, got to an intersection I recognized and turned left without signaling, drove 2 blocks and turned right, then cut into a subdivision I did not know, pulled over in the shadow between 2 streetlights and killed my headlights. I sat there with my hands still gripping the wheel, staring at the rearview mirror. A car came down the street outside the subdivision entrance, moving slowly. The kind of slow you drive when you are looking for a specific address or a specific vehicle. It passed the entrance and kept going, and I watched until its taillights disappeared. I stayed parked for 8 minutes. I counted. The ride home felt very long, even though it was only about 15 minutes. I watched my mirrors the whole way. I took 2 extra turns I did not need to take just to be sure nothing was behind me. When I got back to my apartment, I went straight inside and locked the deadbolt and the door chain. I sat at my kitchen table with my jacket still on and pulled up Instagram. Holly's profile was gone. She had blocked me. When I searched her username, the account came up blank. I sat there for a long time trying to put it together. The perfectly real profile, the long, comfortable conversation, the week of texts, the date that never happened, the hood propped up with nothing wrong underneath it, the tinted windows, the hand. Someone had planned it. That was clear. It was not random. Someone had constructed a situation designed to get me out of my apartment and onto a dark road alone at night. And they had done it well enough that I had gone along with it the whole way up until that last moment. I thought about calling the police that night. I picked up my phone twice, but I could not figure out what I would say that would not sound insane. A girl I never met asked me to come to a dark road, and a man's hand came out of a tinted car window. It sounded like nothing. The next morning, a guy I knew from work named Greg sent me a message. He had seen me engaging with Holly's account earlier in the week and had just heard from someone that a woman named Holly Reeves had reported her Instagram hacked roughly 2 months earlier. Her account had been compromised and taken over completely. She had lost access and had to rebuild from a new account. Someone had stolen her identity, her photos, her tagged friends, her 2 years of content. All of it repurposed to build something convincing enough to use as bait, and I had walked straight into it. I thought about that for several days. I thought about it while I was at work. I thought about it while I was eating dinner. I told myself it was over. Whatever had been planned, I had gotten away from it. The profile was blocked and deleted, and that was the end of it. I was wrong about that. 47 photos. 2.5 weeks after the night on Walnut Creek Drive, I started noticing something strange. My apartment was on the second floor of an exterior walkway-style building. My bedroom window looked directly out over the parking lot. I kept the blinds closed most of the time, but not always. Sometimes in the evenings when I was sitting at my desk or lying in bed reading, I would leave them cracked a few inches to get some air circulating. I started hearing a sound at night. Not loud, not alarming on its own. Just a faint scrape or click against the glass, like something barely grazing the outside of the window. The kind of sound you might hear a branch make if the wind pressed it briefly against the sill. Except there were no branches anywhere near that window. The nearest tree was across the parking lot. The first time I heard it, I looked up and went back to what I was doing. The second time, 3 nights later, I opened the blinds and looked down at the parking lot. Nothing unusual. Cars parked normally, the dumpster at the far end, the flickering street light by the building entrance. It happened again 2 nights after that, and 2 nights after that. By the 5th or 6th time, I had started keeping count. It was always at night, always when I had a light on, always the same faint contact sound, brief, like something being pressed lightly to the glass and then removed. I mentioned it to my neighbor across the walkway. He said he had not heard anything unusual. He suggested it was probably insects flying into the window at night, drawn by the light. I told myself he was right. Then one Thursday, I got a text from a guy I barely knew. His name was Derek Haynes. We had been in a statistics class together at Columbus State 2 years earlier. We had been in the same study group for about a month during midterms. I had his number from a group chat that had gone quiet after the semester ended. I had not heard from him since graduation. The text said, "Hey man, this is Derek. I do not know if you check Instagram a lot, but you should look something up. I found it by accident tonight. I am pretty sure it is you, and if you do not know about it, then you really need to." There was a link at the bottom. I pressed it. It opened the Instagram app. The page that loaded had a username I did not recognize at first. 3 letters and then unofficial. The letters were MW, my initials. The profile picture was a photo of me. I felt a coldness move through my chest that I cannot describe properly. It was not like being startled. It was slower than that, more complete. I started scrolling. There were 47 photos. Every single one was of me, not screenshots from my own account, not photos I had ever taken or posted. These were candid shots, photos taken of me from a distance without my knowledge. There was one of me walking to my truck in the parking lot of a Planet Fitness. There was one of me at a Sunoco gas station on Riverside Drive standing at the pump with my back to the camera. There was one of me sitting in my car outside a Kroger, clearly taken from another vehicle parked nearby. There was a photo of me on the exterior walkway of my building taken from the parking lot below with a long lens or a zoom phone camera. There were pictures of me at the gym, pictures of me leaving work, a photo of me at a Wendy's drive-thru taken from outside the passenger window, and then the newer ones. The most recent photographs were taken at night, from below my bedroom window. Looking up, you could see my window lit from inside. In some of them, you could see my silhouette moving around behind the gap in the blinds. One photo was a clear shot of me sitting at my desk. You could see my face. You could see what I was looking at on my screen. The captions under each post were what finally made me feel sick. One said at the gym again. One said stayed late tonight. One said the light stays on until around midnight most nights. One said he has no idea I'm here. The most recent caption said almost time. I set the phone down on my desk. I was sitting at that desk, right then. The same desk that was visible in those photos. The same window 2 feet to my left. And then the sound came again. The scrape against the glass. Soft, deliberate, right there. Almost time. I did not move for several seconds. I sat completely still with my hands flat on the desk, staring at the wall in front of me. The sound came again, softer, slower, like something being dragged across the surface of the glass very carefully. I stood up and took 4 steps backward until my back pressed against the far wall of the bedroom. My eyes were on the blinds. The slats were cracked maybe 1.5 inches, and I could see a narrow strip of dark outside. Just the orange glow of the parking lot light and nothing else. I looked around the room. I grabbed the metal flashlight off my nightstand, 8 inches of solid aluminum. I held it at my side. I stood there with my back against the wall, and I made myself think. The photos went back at least 3 months, probably more. He had been documenting my routine, my schedule, what gym I used, where I shopped, what time I came home, when my lights went on and went off. The photos through my window were recent, but the surveillance was not. This had been going on a very long time before I ever knew about it. The honey trap on Walnut Creek Drive. He had used Holly's stolen account to lure me out, gotten me to drive 4 miles to a dark road at night. When that failed when I ran, he had not given up. He had come back to watching me. And the caption from 3 days ago said almost time. I pulled out my phone and called 911. I kept my voice low and as steady as I could. I told them my name and my address. I told them I had reason to believe someone was outside my 2nd floor window right now. The dispatcher told me to stay inside, stay away from the windows, and keep the line open. I told her I would. I stood against that far wall and waited. I could hear faint sounds from outside, the parking lot, a car engine somewhere on the street. Wind. The scraping sound did not come again. 2 officers arrived in under 7 minutes. I heard their cruiser pull into the lot. I heard one of them call up to me from below and tell me to stay in the apartment. I did not move until there was a knock on my door and a voice identified itself as Columbus Police. I opened the door. Let them in, handed them my phone with the Instagram account still open. Both officers went through the photos. Their expressions shifted as they scrolled. One of them asked me several questions. The dark road incident, the fake profile, the hacked account, the scraping at the window, all of it. He took notes on a small pad and did not interrupt me once. The second officer had gone back outside to walk the building perimeter. He came back up about 12 minutes later. He told me there were fresh scuff marks on the exterior wall directly below my bedroom window, consistent with a ladder that had been set against the brick. There was a partial boot print in the soil of the narrow flower bed running along the base of the building. He said the marks were fresh. Could be from that night. They put in an urgent request to Instagram to preserve and disclose the account data before it could be deleted. The request went through official law enforcement channels. By the following morning, the account had already been taken down by whoever ran it, but Instagram still had the back-end data. Activity traces showed the account had been logged into from an old iPod Touch, connecting through public Wi-Fi across the Columbus area. Coffee shops, branch libraries, a hospital waiting room on the east side, a Panera Bread off High Street. The device was never found. He has no idea I am here. I broke my lease 3 weeks after that night, paid the fee and left. I did not wait for the investigation to produce anything. I moved into a building in a different part of the city, 4th floor, key card entry, security cameras in the lobby, in both stairwells and the parking garage, an elevator that required a resident fob to operate. I went through every social media account I had, set everything to private, removed every post that showed my building, my street, my car, my neighborhood. I deleted Instagram entirely for almost a year. The investigation went cold. The officer who handled my case called me twice over the following 2 months with updates. The first call was to tell me the device had not been located. The second call was to tell me the case was being kept open, but there were no active leads. Without identifying the device or the person connected to it, there was nothing more they could do. He told me the level of planning involved was consistent with someone who had done something like this before. Patience, long observation periods, multiple approaches. He said those things do not come from nowhere. I have thought about that a lot in the time since. At some point about 6 months after I moved, I tracked down the real Holly Reeves on Instagram. She had recovered her original account and posted a short explanation of what had happened to her followers. I sent her a message. I told her what I had experienced. I kept it short. I did not want to overwhelm her. She replied the same day. She said she was sorry it had happened to me. She said she had been contacted by 2 other men with similar stories. Both had received the same fake DM. Both had been given the same story about a broken down car on a dark road. One of them had turned around before getting out of his car. The other had not. She said she did not know what happened to the second one. She said he had just stopped responding after describing what he found when he approached that black Altima. I have never been able to stop thinking about that. I sleep fine most nights now. Most nights. But there are nights when I hear something against the window or out in the hallway, and my body wakes up before my brain does. Fully alert, completely rigid. Flashlight in my hand before I even know I have reached for it. The new apartment is on the 4th floor with no external ladder access and cameras everywhere, and I still keep the blinds shut from the moment I turn a light on. Every single night, without exception. I still check the back seat of my car before I get in. Every time. Not because I think someone is there, just because one day something clicked in me and that became the thing I do now, and it has not stopped. The last photo posted to that account before it was deleted, the most recent one, taken from the parking lot looking up at my bedroom window at night. Caption said he will come out eventually. I do not know if he found someone else after me. I do not know if he moved on. I do not know if he is still out there. The case is technically still open, but I know what that means. What I do know is this. Your Instagram being public is a map of your life, your routine, your location, your schedule, your face. You are handing all of that to every stranger who looks at your page. Most of those strangers are harmless, but it only takes one. Go private. Check your follower list. Look at who is paying attention. And when you are home at night with a light on, keep your blinds closed. Because sometimes the sound you hear is not the wind.